So this is an in defense of video, which basically means if something's got a rotten percentage on Rotten Tomatoes,
or if it's generally perceived as being bad,
and
somebody sticks up for it,
and we think, or at least
I'm not sold.
I grew up thinking that Judge Dredd, the 1995 film version with Sylvester Stallone, I don't think warrants its incredibly low rating. I need to say a few things first.
Okay, go for it.
It's not a particularly good Judge Dredd adaptation.
No.
So if you went to this as a big 2001 AD fan...
2000 AD.
2000 AD. As I wasn't, clearly. Understandably, you'd be furious.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. I think, it's a bad adaptation, but it's an okay science fiction movie. And secondly, by no means am I saying it's better than Dredd, the Carl Urban 3D violent movie from 20...
Violent movie.
Which I think is a better movie, but I don't think that Judge Dredd 95 deserves the hate it gets.
Well, I don't hate it. I don't hate it by any means. I think there are some things... There are many things wrong with it. But there are some things that are quite nice to watch in it. It's not horrible. It's not awful. There are better ways to spend 90 minutes, but there are also plenty of worse ways you can spend 90 minutes.
Signal flare.
Missed.
I first saw Judge Dredd when my father rented it when I was 9 or something like that, and we went to Blockbuster, and Judge Dredd had just come out on VHS, so got Judge Dredd, and as a 9-year-old kid, it's a film with fun squibs and a lot of action, and it's like it was a
comedy.
Bit of comedy. Like, I really enjoyed it as a 9-year-old.
Fun setting, strange alien premise,
and they put a lot of money into it. Like, I think not all of it looks good. Some of the special effects are a bit dated.
Yeah, well, I guess for a 10-year-old boy, it is one of those kind of perfect movies. The only thing it doesn't have as a 10-year-old boy that you want is probably tits.
I knew you'd say that.
This is in the mid-90s when, Sylvester Stallone wanted to break into science fiction. The first attempt was Demolition Man. Which came out, 2-3 years before this.
I really like Demolition Man.
I think Demolition Man's great.
Yeah.
Which also stars Rob Schneider.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it does, and I'm waiting for the third of their sci-fi trilogy.
Oh, that's great. He gets all the credit.
He did this. He was desperate to get to hitch himself to a sci-fi franchise wagon, apparently.
And it didn't.
And he did this, and I mean, it's not a bad choice. It seems like there's logic to it because it's a well-established comic book series, really beloved comic book series that have been running for decades. And if it works, then you've potentially dozens of stories you can mine from it. You could churn them out once every couple of years. You've got a franchise.
And he looks good in The Mask.
He does.
He looks better. That's one thing I'll give this film over Dredd, is that Carl Urban sort of looks like Dredd's on a diet or something.
Well, Stallone has got a very prominent...
Like a comic
chin.
He's got like a comic book jaw.
It's not Bruce Campbell.
No.
But it's pretty good. He's got a pretty dashing chin.
But the plot of Judge Dredd 95 is there's this, we're in the future in Mega City 1, the world's gone to shit, and there's so much crime and violence that they feel they need cops who are judge, jury, and executioner. Most prominent among them is Judge Dredd. He takes it all very, very seriously.
Really, no sense of humour.
No sense of humour, so they throw in Rob Schneider.
Oh, that is awful acting. Just that little bit there was dreadful acting by Rob Schneider. His just waking up face is awful.
Well, I think that's what many women have said. Basically, Judge Dredd is framed for the murder of some innocents, and he needs to prove his innocence and find out who's behind it.
And he's a really judicious judge, which is a this ludicrous tautology, but he's passionate about what he does. He believes in the law. There's a line in the Anthrax song, I Am the Law. The book of law is the Bible to him, and any crime committed is a sin. And that's how he feels. And he gets framed, and for the first time he realises that the system isn't perfect.
Yeah.
The law doesn't make mistakes.
Really? Then how do you explain what happened to you?
He seems to learn a lot by the end.
By the end, he's just like,
forgotten it.
I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm a street judge, and I'm very late for work.
He's forgiven one criminal, I think, is what he's learned to do. And no one else forgives Rob Schneider in that. But
No, least of all the audience.
I didn't find him annoying when I first watched it, but I was a 10-year-old idiot.
But I fixed the microwave. You want some popcorn?
The thing with Rob Schneider is he's one of my chief complaints about the movie is that he could be more irritating, but he could be a lot funnier. He's not funny is the thing. He's not tear your hair out annoying like Jar Jar Binks is.
No.
But he just isn't funny. He doesn't make me laugh once, and you just... It's the sort of thing where you watch it, and if you were working on it, you're editing it or script editing it, you just go, well, that's the first thing you cut.
Yeah.
This isn't funny. It doesn't work.
Which is why Juice Bigelow, Male Gigolo was only 5 minutes long, which is remarkable.
Yeah, I know. Incredible.
Actually, that's not fair. I do quite... For some reason, I think that those movies I don't mind again.
Really? Really?
Maybe I've got to...
Juice Bigelow?
I need to see them again as
You've
well.
not just seen American Gigolo and got confused. You said
yeah,
Richard Gere.
Rob Schneider carries the woman away at the end.
That's An Officer and a Gentleman.
I mean, I don't know my Richard Gere. I love Alan Silvestri's score. It's really kind of like pumping and kind of, like it gets you excited. I prefer his score in this to his Avengers score. Like I think I think he's an underrated composer as it is. He's done Back to the Future, Predator. I think there's a lot of really good scores, and I think Judge Dredd is one. And I think if the film was better received, I think people would have. It's on my phone. I listen to the Judge Dredd soundtrack sometimes.
I believe that.
Yeah. I like the set design. I mean, it's obvious future.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a poor man's Blade Runner, but a lot of it looks nice.
Yeah.
A lot of it looks good, and you see those shots of people walking through the city, and... Yeah.
And they've spent money on it.
Yeah, some of it does look pretty good. Mostly, it looks quite good, I think. There are a few bits in it that don't look good, like there's a bike chase, which looks pretty awful.
Cover the rear!
But I've never fired a gun in my life!
What the hell kind of criminal are you?
A nice criminal!
It's by no means a good script, but it's a solid an hour and a half, very simple action film. It doesn't go above its like station. It knows what it is, and I think it knows it's just this sort of nonsense. The performance of the villain, played by Rico, who's played by. He's so bad in it, but it's hilarious.
They both at the end when they're yelling, they sound like wrestlers. They sound like wrestlers yelling at each other in a wrestling ring.
It's wrestling promos by the end.
Yeah.
You killed innocent people.
The means to an end.
You started a massacre.
I caused the revolution.
You betrayed the law.
Law!
Would you believe that Sylvester Stallone wouldn't be the least comprehensible person in a movie?
It's probably what he asked for.
yeah, it's in his rider. You said it's a movie that knows what it is. I think that's my complaint. It's a movie that doesn't know what it is. It doesn't know whether to be a really cynical, violent action movie, or whether to be some sort of amusing arch movie that kind of satirizes comic book tropes. I think it kind of gets lost in this middle ground of being a bit funny and a bit wacky and quite nasty. You've got 1 minute you've got Rob Schneider doing whatever the fuck Rob Schneider does.
Why are you taking off his clothes? We don't have time for this.
and then the next scene you've got a man getting his arms torn off. And I think that's kind of the big complaint for me is it's a bit of a mess tonally.
I think that's one. I think that's completely accurate. But I think that's one of the reasons I liked it as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're like. I like a little bit of comedy, and I love ultra violence.
Yeah, you like all that.
So, like, as a kid, it's a similar reason why I think Last Action Hero 2 years before fell through the gaps a bit, because it was a kids movie, but then it was kind of like a little bit violent,
weirdly ironic.
They didn't know who they were going for. But again, even though kids couldn't go see it because it was a 15 here and I guess a PG-13 or whatever in America. Well,
maybe an R.
An R. Like, you're not hitting the target audience. You're not getting the bums in seats that you need.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a fair point. It is tonally all over the place.
Robot, on the count of 3, break a neck.
Robot!
It's like we have the script before you decide what its name is. I do imagine if you were a Judge Dredd fan and you saw the opening credits, which was just pages of the comic book, and then you've got a really unfaithful adaptation, you'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
A bit like the beginning of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where you had the old Paramount logo, and then it dissolves into CGI gophers. You're like, oh, and then Stephen, you sucker punched you.
You raised my hopes and then you absolutely trashed them. I have a colleague who's a really big Judge Dredd fan, and I gather as a sort of satire of a quasi-fascist state, which you don't, from watching this, you don't get to that at all. It's just, you're introduced to this civilization, which is pretty horrible, where individuals have been given power to effectively take the law into their own hands.
Yeah.
And then you have a bit of a disruption there, and then your third act, end of your third act, you're back at square one. And yeah, like we said, it doesn't really seem like anybody learns anything.
I enjoyed it as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever age I was. And I still think it doesn't deserve the hatred. I mean, it is known as like, this is a piece of dog shit. It's by no means a great movie. It's probably by no means a good movie. But I think it's just an adequate summer blockbuster, slightly violent, almost more leaning towards early 90s, not mid-90s, where, I mean, I guess The Matrix came out 4 years after that. That's pretty violent, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm talking bollocks. But I quite like Judge Dredd, 1995. So there.
Fair enough.
How do you plead? I knew you'd say that.
I would say that Judge Dredd 1995 is a 3 out of 5 star movie. I think it's just to this day I look at it, and I've seen it 3 times now. I saw it when I was 10.
You've only seen it 3 times?
Yeah.
You gave me the impression you regularly watched this as a kid.
Well,
I look at you doing this passionate in defence of a movie you've seen 3 times.
God, I mean, I probably won't. I don't think I'll ever see it again, to be perfectly honest. I just don't think it deserves it. I'm just standing up for something I think's fine. I saw it when I was 10 or 9, and then I saw it again about maybe 4 years ago, and I went, yeah, I turned it off halfway through or something. I just went, yeah, it's not as bad as they say, and I just watched it again, and I thought, yeah, that's all right. Judge Dredd.
Wow, that's an endorsement, isn't it?
Don't go out of your way to see it. But I think it's fine.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
You want chaos? I'm the chaos. You want a new beginning? Here. I am the new beginning!